The massive hall of the Galactic Assembly buzzed with voices. Over 3,000 different alien species had sent their best speakers to this important meeting. They gathered once every 100 years to talk about all the planets they had found and to sort them into groups. Today was different. The room felt tense. Many aliens whispered to each other, glancing at the small group of humans sitting in the corner. The humans looked nervous but tried not to show it. Ambassador Zixtal, a tall blue being with 4 arms, leaned toward his helper. "Is the information correct? Are we really going to do this?" he asked quietly. His helper Ven nodded. Ven had 6 eyes that blinked in sequence as she handed over a clear tablet with glowing words. "Yes, Ambassador. The numbers don't lie. We have never seen anything like these Earth creatures before." Zixtal sighed, a sound like water moving through pipes. "This will cause problems. The humans won't be happy." "They don't know yet," Ven said. Nobody told them why this special meeting was called. Across the room, Frank Miller scratched his beard. He was Earth's main speaker, chosen because he was good at staying calm. Frank watched as more and more aliens entered the Great Hall. Some floated, some crawled, some rolled. Earth had only joined the Galactic Assembly 4 years ago, and Frank still found it amazing to see so many different life forms in one place. Next to Frank sat Bill Rogers, a scientist who studied alien bodies. "Do you know what this is about?" Bill whispered. "My contact in the Volian delegation said it was something about Earth specifically." Frank shrugged. "Nobody tells us humans anything important. We're still the new kids here." The lights dimmed 3 times, the signal that the meeting would start. A hush fell over the crowd as the brilliant facet floated to the center stage. This crystal being served as the head of the assembly. When it spoke, its entire body glowed with each word. "Greetings to all sentient beings gathered here today," the brilliant facet said, its voice somehow reaching every corner of the room without seeming loud. "We have gathered for an unusual purpose. For the first time in our 50,000 years of keeping records, we must create a new classification." Frank leaned forward. This sounded important. "Our scientists and cultural experts have spent the last 2 years studying the newest members of our community. The results have been..." The crystal being paused, pulsing with a reddish light that many species recognized as showing worry. "The results have been deeply concerning." Now many aliens turned to look directly at the human delegation. Frank felt his stomach tighten. "Today, we will review the evidence and vote on whether to officially name Earth as the most terrifying planet in known space." The room erupted in sounds. Some aliens clicked. Some hummed. Some released scents of excitement or fear. Frank's mouth fell open. "What?" he said, standing up quickly. "That's why we're here. To be labeled as monsters." The brilliant facet glowed a calming blue. "Not monsters, Representative Miller, but something perhaps more concerning. Your species appears to be what many would call apex survivors, with traits no other known species possesses in combination." Frank looked at his team. They appeared just as shocked as he felt. "We will now begin the evidence review," the brilliant facet continued. "I ask the human delegation to keep an open mind. This classification is not meant as an insult, but as a safety measure for all." As the lights dimmed further and the first images appeared on the giant screens around the hall, Frank sat down slowly. He had come expecting boring talks about trade routes and scientific cooperation. Instead, humanity was on trial, and he hadn't even prepared a defense. "This is bad," Bill whispered. "Really bad." Frank nodded. "And something tells me it's about to get worse." The giant screen in the Galactic Assembly showed a bright summer day on Earth. The date at the bottom read 5 years earlier. First contact. The aliens watched as a huge silver ship slowly came down from the sky. It landed in a field of tall green plants. Dust flew everywhere as the ship touched down. When the dust cleared, a single human stood there. He wore blue pants with straps over his shoulders and a hat that shaded his eyes from the sun. "This is Alan Caldwell," The voice of the narrator said, "A farmer from the region known as Iowa. He is the first human to make contact with our scouts." The video zoomed in on Alan's face. He did not run. He did not scream. He just watched with his mouth open as a door opened in the side of the ship. 3 tall, thin aliens with skin that looked like blue glass stepped out. They moved carefully, as if they expected the human to attack or run away. Instead, Alan took off his hat and waved it. "Hello there." His voice came through clearly on the recording. "You folks lost or something?" The aliens looked at each other, confused. Their translator devices took a moment to process his words. "We come in peace from the stars," one of the aliens said in a formal voice. Alan nodded as if space visitors were normal. "Well, you picked a good spot to land. Not too close to town to cause a fuss, but not so far that you can't get help if you need it." He reached into a small bag near his feet. "Would you like some lemonade? My wife Jane made it fresh this morning." The room full of aliens watching the video buzzed with sounds of surprise. Frank Miller, sitting with the human group, felt a mix of pride and worry. He remembered when this video had first played on every screen on Earth. People had cheered Alan for being so calm and friendly. Now Frank saw the same scene through alien eyes. Alan wasn't acting normal at all. Most thinking beings would be terrified to see a spaceship land. They would run or freeze or call for help. Alan had just offered drinks like the aliens were neighbors stopping by. The video changed to show the aliens walking with Alan to his house. He asked them questions about their ship, their home, and if they had eaten lunch yet. "Our cultural preparation team had expected mass panic," the narrator explained. Instead, this human treated first contact with aliens as merely unusual, not frightening. When asked later why he wasn't afraid, Caldwell said, "Well, if they were here to hurt us, they'd have done it already. No sense being rude to visitors." As the video ended, the brilliant facet glowed softly. This may seem like a positive first meeting. The human showed no fear or hostility. However, our experts found this reaction deeply troubling. No other known species has reacted to first contact with such casual acceptance. It suggests humans have an unusual relationship with the unknown and with danger itself. Frank wanted to argue but kept quiet. What could he say? Alan had acted like a normal, friendly human. If aliens found that scary, what would they think of the rest of human history? This pattern of unusual responses continued as we made wider contact with Earth governments. The brilliant facet continued. Where other species took decades to adjust to joining galactic society, humans adapted within months. They showed excitement rather than fear when learning about strange new worlds and beings. A different alien stood up from the back of the room. This one looked like a furry purple ball with many eyes. "Is quick adaptation not a positive trait?" the alien asked. The brilliant facet pulsed slowly. "Adaptation is valuable, but the speed and ease with which humans adapt to extreme change suggests something our experts find troubling. They evolve socially at a rate that is unsettling." Frank looked at the other humans on his team. They all seemed confused. They were being judged as dangerous because they hadn't been scared enough of aliens, because they adapted too quickly. This was going to be a very long day. The next part of the presentation began. Large screens around the hall showed humans doing things that made the aliens gasp or turn away. First, they showed a woman jumping from a plane. She fell through the air, smiling as the ground rushed toward her. At the last moment, she pulled a cord and a large piece of cloth opened above her, slowing her fall. "Humans call this skydiving," the narrator explained. "They do this for fun." Next came a man swimming with large sharks. The sharks had many sharp teeth, but the man touched them gently, unafraid. "Most humans know these animals can kill them," the narrator said. "Yet they seek them out for what they call the thrill." More images followed. Humans eating foods that would poison other species, climbing tall mountains without safety ropes, and running into burning buildings to save others. Dr. Susan Wright watched with growing worry. She was Earth's expert on how different species' bodies worked. She knew how these actions looked to aliens whose worlds had fewer dangers than Earth. "They're making us look crazy," she whispered to Frank. The alien leading this part of the presentation was small and round with green skin. "As you can see, humans regularly do things that would kill most thinking beings. They seek out danger. They eat things that hurt them. They jump from high places. They swim in water full of deadly creatures." The alien tapped a control, and the screen showed a human baby learning to walk. The baby fell down, cried a little, then got back up and tried again. Even their young show this pattern. When hurt, they continue. When faced with failure, they try again. Most species learn to avoid pain. Humans seem to push through it. Frank stood up. "Can I ask a question?" The green alien looked surprised but nodded. "These things you're showing, they aren't what most humans do every day. Yes, some of us like what we call extreme sports, but most of us live normal, careful lives." The green alien blinked slowly. "That is true. However, the fact that any of your species voluntarily do these things is what concerns us. No other known species has members who seek out danger for enjoyment." Susan Wright raised her hand next. When the green alien nodded at her, she spoke clearly. "Earth has more dangers than many worlds. We evolved to handle these dangers. Our seeking of thrills is just our old survival skills finding new uses in a safer world." The brilliant facet glowed gently. "Dr. Wright, your point is noted, but consider how this looks to species from more stable worlds. Your natural abilities and behaviors would make you extremely dangerous if you ever chose to use them against others." Frank shook his head. "But we haven't. Since joining the galactic community, humans have followed all the rules. We've been peaceful." "For 5 years," said a tall, thin alien with 4 arms. "5 years is nothing. Some members of this assembly live for thousands of years. How can we know what humans will do in 100 years? Or 1,000? The screens changed again to show a hospital. A doctor cut open a human with a sharp tool. The patient was asleep, but many aliens in the room made sounds of distress. Humans cut their own bodies open to fix problems inside, the narrator explained. They replaced parts that don't work. They even take organs from the dead and put them in the living. No other species does this. Susan sighed. She had helped make this very video to teach aliens about human medicine. Now it was being used against them. The green alien faced the assembly. "We must ask ourselves, what are these humans? Their bodies can take damage that would kill us. They seek out fear and danger. They heal in ways we cannot. If they ever decided we were their enemies, how would we stop them?" Frank looked at his team. This was getting worse with every new piece of evidence. The aliens weren't just afraid of what humans had done. They were afraid of what humans could do. The next speaker was a tall, thin alien with skin that looked like blue metal. This was Dr. Vexlor, the head of Alien Body Studies. The screens changed to show pictures of human bodies next to other alien forms. "Now we will discuss what makes humans physically different," Dr. Vexlor said in a calm voice. "These differences are perhaps the most concerning of all." The first image showed a human with many cuts and burns. Then it showed the same human weeks later, fully healed. "Humans can lose large amounts of blood and survive," Dr. Vexlor explained. "They can have holes in their bodies that would kill most species, yet they recover. Their skin grows back. Their bones fix themselves when broken." Many aliens made sounds of surprise or worry. To them, this seemed like magic. If shot or stabbed in non-vital areas, humans can continue to function despite the damage. Dr. Vexlor continued. "Some have survived being exposed to space vacuum for short periods. They can live through radiation that would kill most species." Lieutenant Greg Patterson of the human team shifted in his seat. As a military man, he knew these things were true. Humans could take a lot of damage and keep going, but he never thought this would make aliens afraid of them. Most troubling, Dr. Vexlor said, is their need for sleep, a state where they become unconscious for hours each day, yet they can skip this need for several days when necessary. An image appeared of a human sleeping peacefully. Can you imagine? Dr. Vexlor asked the assembly. A species that regularly turns off its consciousness, making itself vulnerable for a third of its life, yet has survived top predator status on a dangerous world. What natural defenses must they have developed to allow such a risky behavior? Greg leaned toward Susan. They're talking about us like we're some kind of super soldiers, he whispered. To them, we are, Susan replied. Most species evolved in safer environments than Earth. They never needed to develop our kind of resilience. The brilliant facet floated forward. Dr. Wright, since you are Earth's body expert, perhaps you can explain something. Is it true that humans can have parts of their body removed and still function normally? Susan stood up. Yes, that's true for certain organs. We have 2 kidneys but need only 1. We can lose parts of our liver, and it will grow back. We can live without our appendix, gallbladder, spleen, and parts of our intestines. The room filled with shocked sounds. And you can attach new body parts from other humans? Asked another alien. Yes, we call that organ transplantation. Susan explained. It saves many lives. What about the reports that humans intentionally consume poisons? The brilliant facet asked. Greg knew what was coming and put his head in his hands. Well, Susan said carefully, we do consume certain substances that affect our bodies and minds. Alcohol, caffeine, and certain other chemicals. In small amounts, some can be pleasant or helpful. You poison yourselves for pleasure. A fuzzy purple alien asked, its many eyes wide. Not to harm ourselves, Susan tried to explain. Just to feel different for a short time. Dr. Vexlor turned to the assembly. Consider what this means. A species that can withstand poison for fun. A species that can lose body parts and continue. A species that repairs itself from damage that would kill any of us. The blue alien walked closer to the human team. And now consider this final point. Humans live on a planet with higher gravity than 80% of inhabited worlds. Their muscles and bones are naturally stronger than most species just from growing up on Earth. Frank saw many aliens looking at the human team with new eyes, not with hatred, but with fear. We've never hurt anyone, Frank said, standing up. These things just help us survive on our planet. And what happens, Dr. Vexlor asked quietly, when you leave your planet and meet beings who cannot survive what you can, who cannot fight as you can, who cannot heal as you can? Frank had no good answer to that question. The next part of the trial was about how humans think. The screens changed to show pictures of the human brain next to alien brains. A small green alien with 6 legs stepped forward. This was Dr. Meepo, an expert on how different species think. The human mind, Dr. Meepo began, is perhaps the most unusual we have ever studied. Humans have strange, and sometimes scary ways of thinking. The first image showed humans building a city in a desert. Most species adapt to their environment, Dr. Meepo explained. Humans change their environment instead. They build homes in places too hot, too cold, too dry, or too wet for them. Then they change these places to suit their needs. The next image showed humans playing with dogs, cats, and other animals. Humans form deep bonds with other species, Dr. Meepo continued. They keep predators as pets in their homes. They talk to these animals as if they understand. Some humans feel more connected to these animals than to other humans. Dr. Olivia Baker, Earth's mind expert, watched with growing concern. She knew these normal human behaviors must seem odd to aliens. Most troubling, Dr. Meepo said, is how humans think about danger. They create stories about their own extinction. They make plans for disasters that might never happen. They prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. The screen showed movie posters about the end of the world, zombie attacks, and alien invasions. No other species spends so much time thinking about its own destruction, Dr. Meepo said. It's as if humans want to be ready for anything. The brilliant Facet turned to Olivia. Dr. Baker, can you explain why your species does this? Olivia stood up. She felt all eyes in the room on her. Humans evolved as what we call persistence hunters, she explained. We chased animals until they got too tired to run. This made us good at seeing patterns and preparing for different outcomes. We think about bad things that might happen so we can avoid them. You hunt by chasing? Asked a small round alien who came from a world of slow-moving plant eaters. Until your prey cannot escape. We used to, Olivia said. Now we get food from farms and stores. But our brains still work the same way. Do humans enjoy the hunt? The alien asked, clearly afraid of the answer. Olivia paused. She knew she needed to be honest, but the truth might scare them more. Yes, many humans enjoy activities that use these old hunting skills. Sports, games, solving puzzles. These all use the same parts of our brain that evolved for hunting. Many aliens moved back in their seats, away from the human team. Dr. Meepo clicked a button, and the screen showed human wars, arguments, and fights. Then it showed humans helping each other, saving lives, and building things together. Humans are full of opposites, Dr. Meepo said. They can be very violent, yet they risk their lives to save strangers. They fight over small differences, yet they work together to solve big problems. They destroy nature, yet they try to save it. The green alien looked directly at the human team. We do not understand how a species can be so divided within itself and still function. This makes humans very hard to predict. And what we cannot predict, we fear. Frank Miller stood up again. Every thinking being has different sides to them. We're not so different from you. But you are, Dr. Meepo said softly. Most species choose a path, to be aggressive or peaceful, to change themselves or their environment, to live fast or slow lives. Humans do all these things at once. You live in the middle of opposites that would tear other societies apart. The brilliant Facet glowed gently. Perhaps this explains how humans went from simple farming to space travel in just a few thousand years. Such rapid change is unknown among other species. Olivia looked at her team. The aliens were right about one thing. Humans were full of opposites, and now they needed to show their best side if they wanted to change minds in this room. The next speaker was a tall, thin alien with skin that changed colors like a thinking rainbow. This was Professor Zoll, the history expert. The screens around the room began to show images from human history. Now we must look at the human past, Professor Zoll said. What a species has done before often tells us what they might do again. The screen showed early humans making simple tools, then better tools, then machines, then computers, and finally spaceships. Humans went from using sticks and stones to reaching other planets in less than 10,000 years, Professor Zoll explained. No other known species has changed so quickly. Jack Young, the human history expert, watched with a tight feeling in his chest. He knew what was coming next. The screens changed to show human wars, cave people fighting with clubs, soldiers with swords, armies with guns, ships firing at each other, planes dropping bombs. Humans have fought each other constantly throughout their history, Professor Zoll continued. They have made better and better tools for killing. They have weapons that could destroy their entire planet. The images changed to show the good things humans had done. Beautiful buildings, art, music, and people helping each other. Yet despite their violent nature, humans also create beauty, Professor Zoll admitted. They make art. They help strangers. They work together to solve big problems. Professor Zoll turned to look at the human team. This is what worries us most. Humans have both great good and great harm inside them. We cannot predict which side will win in the end. Jack stood up. Professor, you're not showing the whole picture. Yes, we've had wars, but we've learned from them. We've created peace groups, world helper organizations, and rules between countries. We're getting better. Are you? Professor Zoll asked. The screens showed newer fights between countries. These images are from just 50 years ago. You still fight. But less than before, Jack argued, and we're working on it. The brilliant Facet floated forward. Mr. Young, your species created weapons that could end all life on your planet. Why would any thinking beings do this? Jack took a deep breath. Fear, he said honestly. Fear that others would hurt us first. But we've never used those worst weapons again. We know they're too terrible. Professor Zoll's skin turned a deep blue. Yet you keep these weapons. You could destroy them, but you choose not to. It's complicated, Jack said. Yes, Professor Zoll agreed. Humans are always complicated. This is what makes you hard to trust. The screen showed humans setting up their first meeting place in space, working side by side with the first aliens they met. In just 5 years, Professor Zoll said, humans have learned to use our technology, speak many of our languages, and adapt to our ways. They learn faster than any species we have ever met. The professor looked around the room. Is this quick learning good or bad? It depends on what humans decide to do with this knowledge. If they remain friends, they could help our community grow in new ways. If they become enemies. Professor Zoll didn't finish the sentence. The room was quiet. Frank Miller stood up. We've shown you who we are, he said. Since joining your community, we've followed all your rules. We've been good neighbors. Judge us by what we've done, not by what you fear we might do. An alien with many eyes stood up from the back of the room. What guarantee can you give that humans will always be peaceful? It asked. Frank looked at his team, then back at the alien. None, he said honestly. No one can promise forever, but we can promise to try our best every day. Can any of you offer more than that? The brilliant Facet glowed softly. An honest answer, Representative Miller, but not one that eases our concerns. Your history shows great progress, but also great danger. And now you have access to even more powerful tools and knowledge. As the screens went dark, Frank saw many aliens looking at the human team with new eyes. They weren't seeing monsters. They were seeing something perhaps more scary. Beings with the power to help or harm on a scale they had never seen before. After 16 hours of watching videos, looking at pictures, and listening to speakers, the Galactic Assembly was ready to vote. The huge room was quiet as the aliens thought about what they had learned about humans. The brilliant Facet glowed with soft blue light. We will now vote on whether to name Earth as the most terrifying planet in known space. Frank Miller and his team watched as small screens appeared in front of each alien. They would touch these screens to vote yes or no. This is bad, Susan whispered. We haven't changed enough minds. Maybe it won't be so bad if they vote yes, Greg said. It's just a name, right? The brilliant Facet glowed brighter. The voting is complete. A large screen showed the results. Almost all the aliens had voted yes. Earth would be named the most terrifying planet. Frank closed his eyes for a moment. This was exactly what he had feared. The vote is clear, the brilliant Facet announced. Earth will receive this new classification. Now we must decide what safety measures to put in place. Safety measures, Frank asked, standing up quickly. What does that mean? A tall blue alien with 4 arms stood up. It means we must protect the rest of the galaxy from the potential danger that humans represent. The alien touched a control, and a list appeared on the screens. We suggest these 5 safety steps, the alien said. First, special watching devices around the Earth system to track all ships coming and going. Second, warning marks on all human ships so others know who they are meeting. Third, limits on how many humans can live in other star systems. Fourth, limits on how many humans can work in galactic government. Fifth, special mind tests for any aliens who want to visit Earth. The human team looked at each other in shock. This is not fair, Olivia said, her voice shaking a little. You're treating us like criminals, but we haven't done anything wrong. The brilliant Facet glowed gently. These are not punishments, Dr. Baker. They are precautions. Think of them as safety rules, like the ones humans use for dangerous but useful things. Frank stood up. Members of the assembly, I understand your fears. But these rules would cut humans off from full membership in the galactic community. We've been peaceful partners. These limits are based on fear, not on how we've actually behaved. The four-armed alien responded. It is exactly because you have been peaceful that these measures are so mild. We recognize your good behavior, but we cannot ignore what your species could become. As the aliens began to discuss the safety measures, the human team stepped away to talk. This is worse than I expected, Frank said quietly. They're going to watch us like we're dangerous animals. We need to change their minds, Susan said. But how? Jack thought for a moment. If they're afraid of what we might do, maybe we need to show them what we will do. A plan that uses our scary abilities to help the galaxy. Frank looked back at the aliens. Most of them were avoiding looking at the humans now, as if they were afraid to make eye contact. You might be right, Frank said. We need to turn this around somehow. Instead of fighting the terrifying label, maybe we can use it. Greg looked confused. Use it? How? I'm not sure yet, Frank admitted. But if they're going to see us as powerful and dangerous, no matter what we say, maybe we can show them that powerful doesn't have to mean threatening. The human team huddled together, speaking in low voices. They had 1 week before the final vote on the safety measures. 1 week to change how an entire galaxy saw the human race. We need a bold plan, Frank said. Something that will surprise them. As they talked, many aliens watched them nervously from across the room, wondering what these unpredictable humans might do next. 1 week later, Frank Miller stood before the Galactic Assembly again. The room was even more crowded than before. Word had spread about Earth's new title, and many aliens wanted to see what the humans would do. Frank looked calm as he waited for everyone to quiet down. Behind him, the human team had worked day and night on their plan. Members of the assembly, Frank began, 1 week ago, you named Earth as the most terrifying planet in known space. Today, I have come to tell you that we accept this title. A surprised murmur ran through the crowd. No one had expected this. We cannot change what we are, Frank continued. We evolved on a dangerous world that made us strong, fast to learn, and able to survive many things that would kill others. These things make us scary to you. We understand that now. The brilliant facet glowed with soft blue light. You accept the classification, without argument. Yes, Frank said. But we do not accept being treated as enemies when we have been friends. So we offer you this pledge instead of the safety measures you proposed. Frank nodded to Susan, who pressed a button. The screens around the room lit up with a new plan. It showed human ships helping after space storms, humans working with aliens to fix environmental problems, and humans protecting smaller ships from space pirates. We call this the Terran Guardian program, Frank explained. Instead of limiting what humans can do, let us use our abilities to help the galaxy. The same strength that makes us scary can make us excellent protectors. Frank walked slowly around the front of the room, making eye contact with many aliens. You fear what we could do at our worst. Let us show you what we can do at our best. Judge us not by what we might become, but by what we choose to be. Ambassador Zixtal stood up. The blue four-armed alien had been their biggest critic. Fine words, Representative Miller. What words are easy? What specific actions do you propose? Susan stepped forward. We suggest 3 things. First, human ships will help with emergency rescue anywhere in the galaxy. We can survive conditions that would kill most species. Greg joined her. Second, we will help protect developing worlds and trade routes from dangers. The same scary abilities that worry you make us good defenders. Olivia came forward next. Third, we will share our medical knowledge to help other species, while respecting their different biologies. Our understanding of healing comes from our dangerous past. Jack stood beside them. We ask only that you judge us by what we do, not by what you fear we might do. Give us a chance to earn your trust instead of limiting us before we've done anything wrong." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Ambassador Zixtal spoke again. "Your species frightens me deeply," the ambassador admitted. "But perhaps that is exactly what this galaxy needs right now. There are threats out there that the rest of us struggle to face. If humans truly want to be guardians rather than conquerors, I would support trying your plan." Other aliens began to speak up, some supporting the human plan, others still worried. The debate lasted for hours. Finally, the brilliant Facet called for a new vote. The Assembly will now vote on whether to accept the Terran Guardian program instead of the proposed safety measures. Frank and his team held their breath as the aliens voted. This time, the vote was much closer, but in the end, a small majority voted to try the human plan. Earth will keep its title as the most terrifying planet, the brilliant Facet announced. But humans will be given the chance to show they can be trusted guardians rather than potential threats. As the meeting ended, Ambassador Zixtal approached Frank. "I still fear what humans might become," the alien said quietly. "But I am curious to see what you will choose to be." Frank smiled and held out his hand in the human greeting gesture. "So are we, Ambassador. So are we." Within weeks, the news spread across Earth and human colonies. Rather than being upset about being called terrifying, humans embraced their new role with typical human humor and determination. T-shirts reading, "Officially Terrifying," became popular in spaceports. Behind the jokes was a serious promise: to use human strength to protect rather than threaten. For the first time, many aliens looked at humans not just with fear, but with hope that these strange, resilient beings might use their terrifying qualities to build something wonderful.